And we want to hear from you guys, what makes a project worth pursuing? Is it the prettiest building? Is it the best location? Is it the condition of the building? I guess we want to hear from each of you guys. What draws you to a project?
Well, for me, because we do just about everything that we do is light tech based, the first thing that I look at, and I get a lot of people that always say, you should look at this building, you should look at this building, you gotta do this building, it's gonna take forever. The thing that I look at is how does it score with WIDA, right? I mean, because WIDA is a competitive program for their light tech, low income housing tax credit program. And they get about 60 to 80 applications a year and maybe only award 20 to maybe 30 of those. So it's very competitive, it's based on scoring. And one of the big criteria is the census tract that it's located in. And then that's probably the biggest thing right now. It's changed over the years. Every 2 years, the scoring changes. But right now, the thing that really differentiates, because everybody, they maximize the points on low income. They maximize the points on credit usage. So the only thing that can really differentiate you is where it's located in the census tract. So that's the first question I ask. Then the next thing I look at is, how are the windows? Because NPS has this fetish with windows. I have no idea why, but I almost hope to God that the windows aren't there. So that's the second thing that I would look for.
That's awesome.
For me, it's really all about location. While scoring is important, I tend to have these properties, I keep them, I don't typically sell them. After the credits burn off, we keep them. So the scoring is absolutely critical. And the other thing that we look for when we're doing historic especially is a community that supports the development. Because if they're not excited about it, if they're not willing to put resources into it, I'm not real excited about it either. They can do a lot of legwork, take a lot of the questions out of the development, and I think we all know that time kills deals.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time to get historic and to marry them with the affordable tax credits.
I'll echo exactly what both of you said, but maybe more on the physical side. I usually do a gut check on the physical building as well. If I go in and it looks like a fantastically relevant building, but then you walk in, you see a bunch of step cracking, and you see a bunch of brick that's starting to crumble and things like that. I do a gut check, because the more of that structural stuff you have to do behind the scenes, the less of the fun stuff you get to see, to do that people can see. So I really do rely on a handful of experts, both on the historic side, Mike,
Yes.
on the historic side, just to make sure that this is something that's going to hunt. We usually do a really early precursory look at it and say, yes, this is probably going to come up with the right criteria to be eligible, etc. But then I'll also walk through with structural people and our architects right away, looking at windows, looking at structural things, because those and environmental as well. If there's anything like that's going to surprise you, those are the real budget blowers.
That's good to know. All right, next we're going to move into the numbers, financing and feasibility. So we know, I've heard historic tax credits, WDC, WIDA. So we've heard a lot of these. My question for you guys is, where do projects most often fall apart financially?
I'll let Russ handle this one.
How much time do you have?
Hours.
Well, there's lots of places. Oftentimes they have a commercial component, and if you don't have a tenant for your commercial component lined up ahead of time, it's much more difficult to obtain the financing. Also, if you can get a commercial tenant lined up, you can put those costs in the historic credits, not in the low-income tax credits. But getting that tenant lined up and getting that cost into the basis really helps give you a leg up.
Okay.
I usually use either WIDA financing or HUD financing, and they do a significant amount of underwriting, let's just say that, and it can get bogged down. There's they run into problems with bond credit limits now, and
Okay.
that's become more competitive, and that almost killed the deal that we had
Mm.
last year. So, so the tenant and the financing is for me.
In the state of Wisconsin, there isn't a deal that we've done that doesn't have multiple layers of soft money behind just the primary debt and the tax credit equity. And I pulled out our project sources for the Grove, which is up in Stevens Point, which was about a $30 million project, and there are 13 sources.
Wow.
And they include everything from the federal HISCO credit, state HISCO credit, the federal and state low-income housing tax credits, but then we had home funds from the state of Wisconsin, WIDA cap magnet funds, a CDBG grant, a TIF grant, an idle sites grant from WEDC, some equity we had to put in, and then a WIDA first mortgage. So basically, each of these pieces takes time and effort to put together, and also has a lot of compliance pieces to it. A lot of them will have different requirements, be it sustainability points. A lot of the different programs have those kind of things, but also participation, minority business enterprises, things like that. So we have a person now in our office whose only job is to monitor compliance with these multiple soft money sources.
Yeah.
And that's what I find is always the most tricky, because if you stub your toe, you can end up not doing another project with that organization. So.
I just got one more thing to add.
Yeah.
Where they fall apart is on the operational side too, because if you can get the building built, but you can't afford to pay the debt, that's a problem. And you really got to look at what the costs are going to be. For example, if the building does have a significant amount of common space, that costs a lot more to operate. Or if the renovation isn't done really, really well, or there's a few things that they left, that gets it very difficult to make it work.
Yeah, I would just go off of what you guys talked about already, but with the large capital stack, that is really typical for these types of projects. But one of the things that you don't realize is that all of those, in addition to what Sig was saying about how they're attached to that money that's coming out to you, there's this hand and an arm and a body and a bureaucracy behind it that has all these different rules that you have to follow. A lot of times the rules don't line up, right? A lot of stuff that historic wants you to do, the local municipality doesn't want you to do, or vice versa. And then on top of that is that each one of them has a different deadline. And a lot of times the deadlines don't line up, right? You have to apply to weed at a certain time, you have to start by a certain time. If you have to wait for Federal Home Loan Bank or some other funding program, or this new WIDA program that's come out that they don't exactly yet have all the rules, you can't even apply for it yet.
Yeah.
So the funding deadlines, and a lot of times that'll kill a deal, just to your point, the amount of time that it takes, because you run out of, and somebody mentioned it here, they lost $200,000 while they were in the process of doing their work. So that's the thing that kills them.
So listening to you guys, you must really like what you do, right? I mean, it's not easy. These deals are not easy. Okay, so we want to share with the audience partnerships and process. What kinds of partners are essential? Russ, you mentioned the community. You want to be able to work with the community. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you guys look for in partnerships and process?
I can't emphasize enough how critical it is that you have municipal partners that want to work with you and not make your life miserable. It ranges from the front end, a municipality that's supportive of the project, that's willing to help you circle funding, to the building inspector. And we've had complete night and day, yin and yang experiences with building inspectors. I won't mention the municipalities, but we had one particularly aggressive building inspector that just would not give us a break on anything. If there was a ramp element in the basement or something that was 0.5% off of what code would dictate, we had to rip it out. And we literally spent well over $1 million doing, pardon me, but absolutely stupid things that made no difference to life safety, made no difference to the quality of the experience of the residents. and nobody would even notice.
Wow.
So that absolutely, can be a killer. So if you have but then on the other end, you have municipalities where they roll up their sleeves, they get creative, they say, this is an existing situation, they help you seek out code exceptions and do scoring under whatever, chapter 14, all these different exceptions you can do, and then it's just like a breath of fresh air. You're trying to get to the right finish line with either, a situation where you have to fight every day, or you get up and somebody says, hey, good job, and how can we help? So that to me is the biggest difference.
That's a good one.
The best experience I ever had was working in the city of Beloit. I managed some properties down there. An architect that I worked with in Madison and Dane County was working close with the city of Beloit. And I didn't really I wasn't excited about it. And every step of the way, they were paving the way for me. They had a huge amount of support. They had the building surveyed. They had things ready.
Nice.
They found a tenant. I had a tenant lined up, Beloit College,
Wow.
pretty good tenant. And they saw to it that I didn't have to go attend a lot of council meetings or plan commission meetings. I mean, they just completely greased the skids. I mentioned that I worked with an architect that had a substantial amount of historic experience, so that was very, very good. We were going to GC the project ourselves, but we were pretty busy at the time, so I found a local contractor that was Corporate Contractors, which is a division of ABC, Ken
Sure.
Hendricks and
Right.
Company.
Sure.
And then for purchasing the credits, M&I Bank, who I work with,
Yeah.
and the bank was right across the street. So they were very motivated
Done.
to see this property up and running and going well. And, when things always hit the fan on these deals, and of course it hit the fan, but we were working with the city, we were working with a very good tenant that was very flexible, and also the corporate contractors, they stepped up to the plate and made sure that we got the project done too. And
Nice.
it was a greatest example of a really good teamwork.
Excellent.
That makes me think about the first project that I worked on in 1994 was a historic project that was historic and low income. And I didn't even know what a developer was at the time when I got hired. And we were in Weeda's offices in Burrs Hill at that time. And this huge table. And I mean, there's people sitting all around the table. There's Weeda, there's the bankers, there's the investors, there's people from the city. It's a historic tax credit project. There's people from SHPO there. There's everybody there. And everybody is working and they all have their own particular interests. And like I said before, they don't always line up, right? But at some point, and this was a really difficult project, it had a huge capital stack. And at some point, we all agreed that it was done, and it was a done deal, and everybody nodded their head yes. And the guy that hired me, that I started out in business, said that's what development is getting people around the table that all have competing interests to all agree and nod their head yes at the exact same time, and then you have a deal. Well, you sort of have a deal, actually. Then you gotta get started. But that's what partnership is about working together with a lot of different people that have competing interests to come up with a single solution.
That sounds great. Thank you. So I guess other than saying all communities should be like the city of Beloit, we've heard their city of Beloit. Is anybody from Beloit? Is anybody here from Beloit? No? Okay.
No, but I work with them a lot, and I agree.
Okay, there we go. Thanks, Joe. All right, so, and I also really appreciated, I don't know if the mayor of Baraboo is still here, but, we hear about these buildings, historic buildings that come up for sale, and sometimes people will call me and say, hey, Jen, do you know of any historic buildings for sale in, Marathon County? No, I have no idea. Or it's vice versa. Or somebody will send me and say, hey, I actually knew about those buildings in Baraboo, and said, hey, can you send these to your developers, see if anybody's interested? Yes. So I think as as a historic preservation community, we want to continue to improve on that so that as statewide, we have a resource, and I think Wisconsin Trust, I know I'm giving us work to do, Catherine, but I think the Wisconsin Trust, that would be a great thing. If we had something on our website that said, hey, we have these 3 buildings in Marathon County for sale, or whatever it is. Okay, back to the questions. What should a community or building owner do before approaching a developer? What should they, other than have tenants, maybe that would be a good one, but you know, or what advice do you have about properties that aren't of the scale for one of the major developers? I mean, just thinking about these properties, they're all sizes, they're all across Wisconsin. Do you have any advice for municipalities, cities that have these buildings?
Yeah, well, I think that these smaller buildings, that Joe was talking about, they're just, I come from a small town and I love small rural towns, and it's so sad to me to see so many of those get dilapidated and not have, and there's really aren't good resources, and this is, I'm not going to give you a good answer on this one. There aren't good resources to try and make those small projects work, and if there's anything that we can do, I'd be all in favor of helping solve that problem, because I think it's a huge problem in Wisconsin that we need to solve.
Yeah.
As far as, you know, larger projects and what municipalities can do, I can tell you, and I hesitate whether or not I should mention the name of the city here, but I had an opportunity. It was a mid-century modern hospital, and I was so excited about it because it's like, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to be able to work on a mid-century building now. You know, it's just over 50 years old. I'm going to be able to do this. The guy had bought it from the local community, didn't know what to do with it, called me in, had already had conversations with the mayor and the city development person, and they were all on board. Okay, we get to the zoning meeting. It's a room about this size, but it was packed with people, more people than are here right now, and people out the door. Somebody locally had gotten on and didn't want to see low-income housing in their neighborhood. And it's, you know, it's in the middle. I think the mayor from Baraboo mentioned it, that the neighbors want to just see it torn down in a park, right? He had talked about that with the school. And that's what these neighbors want to do, is just tear down this mid-century building and put up a park, but they don't understand the cost that it'll take to tear that down, the maintenance, the long-term maintenance. And then what happened, and this is what was really frustrating, was that then the mayor and the community development guy just sort of, they didn't have our back. And so I just walked out of that thing. It's like I walked out and I left. I'm never coming back. And so that's a long way of saying you really have to have municipal representatives that are willing to stick their necks out and really push for this and advocate for projects. And I've been in communities where they do that. It sounds like you had that experience in Beloit, but this was just very unfortunate, and it's the exact opposite of what you need to do in order to get your historic buildings done.
Yeah, interesting. I think that the small project dilemma is a really significant one, because a lot of these projects do kind of fall through the cracks based on size. Unfortunately, I know that small projects take a lot of times as much energy as big projects, so we're going to go for the big projects that make more financial sense for us. I think that seeing some of the programs, though, that are specifically tailored toward this issue are super encouraging. I think that part of the issue, too, is the complexity of the number of little tiny resources. There might be a $50,000 facade grant, a $75,000 this or that. You know, how do we kind of pool those together so that this, I'll say the poor developer owner that has a 6-unit project going on doesn't have to spend a year trying to bring together these smaller resources. Because I think the money is probably out there in different forms, but it's really tough to just navigate that unless you're used to doing it. And that's kind of my first point. And then as far as what municipalities can do, I couldn't agree more that municipalities need to advocate. And that is the big difference. If you have somebody who advocates for historic preservation or affordable housing, whatever it may be, trying to get the work done ahead of time, I would say, is a big thing. If you go into a situation where the zoning exists and the building or the project is done by right, meaning that you're not asking for anything special from a municipality, that is very different than going in and having to battle through a conditional use permit with a exception for that, and all of a sudden you're asking for something. It's all they're asking for a big favor to put millions of dollars into this property. So I think that the more that communities can be proactive and kind of tee up things through zoning or through other leverage that they have, so that their things can be done more methodically without having a Facebook post where 200 people show up in a gym.
Right.
And we've all been there, we've had them, and that's it.
Yeah.
And we've had situations too, literally I see that, and I call, the brain hemorrhage factor, when you walk and you're going, yeah, it's just not worth the uphill battle.
Yeah.
And so the more people, I think the more municipalities can do on the front end to kind of smooth that process so you don't have anything that you're asking for, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Gotta smooth the process, get it laid out, and because no one wants to deal with unhappy, cranky neighbors who don't want to see it built. And it also takes a lot of city resources, TIF and other accommodations in order for these things to be built. And, candidly, as far as doing a tax credit and low-income housing tax credit with historic credits, I mean, I don't see how you could do it with fewer than 40 or 50 units. It's really tough.
Okay. Thank you. All right, last question. You guys have been doing really good with my questions. Nice work. Okay, so closing question. What types of historic housing opportunities are you most excited about right now? What are you seeing in Wisconsin, whether it be a type of historic building or a location, or what's going on right now that's exciting?
I would say I'm seeing two things. Schools are a big one, just a lot of schools because of consolidation or other reasons. So we're doing a school in Michigan right now. We've been working on it for 3 years. This just all takes time, as you know, Jen. And the other thing that we've been particularly interested in and have been working on are facilities that have some faith-based background. We have, we've done several convents now, to the point where I'm getting the calls from Sister so-and-so,
Yes.
Sister Judy, I get a call from her, might know Sister Judy now. So, I think there are these legacy projects there that are kind of turning obsolete, and I see that those are the big categories that we're seeing out there.
Good one.
Going back to the first thing, it's location. It's got to be a location that I think is going to be great for a long period of time so that it remains marketable. And then with that location, scoring, as you mentioned, Todd, if you don't score, you don't have the capital stack that you need, and the deal doesn't work.
So it's interesting about the convents. I've not done one, but I've been through a couple of them, and they are just immaculate. It's like, that's all they did all day long was like polish the woodwork.
Yeah.
Just beautiful. So I'd love to do one. I haven't done one. The thing that I'm excited about is, like I mentioned, doing mid-century modern now. I think I haven't had the opportunity to get one of those yet, but I'd be excited about doing one of those, because that's different than anything I've done in the past. And then I think that there is an opportunity, and you see it happening now, where offices with the, people working from home more and kind of the downsizing the office, I think there's a real opportunity for office to housing conversion. So I think that's an opportunity that's out there coming up. I'd also, like I mentioned before, I'd love to see one smaller Main Street thing done. And I think what Weed is doing with this...
Thank you. Joe is taking notes. I think Joe's going to call you, Todd. I think he's going to have a lot of small buildings for you. I like what you said about the building types. I know that we've been talking with developers across the country, and we're all saying, what do we do with our historic churches, right? The National Park Service doesn't want to see them subdivided. What do you do with these churches? So I think looking ahead, that's going to be kind of exciting with our faith-based buildings, whatever they were. But That was just my thought.